Okay. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Take two. My name is Steve Lahamgan. I currently work for Certificated HR as an HR manager, but prior to joining Certificated, I was in classified HR for 7 or 8 years. And then before Classified's selection branch for 9 or 10 years. So I have a wealth of knowledge to share. I'm going to be going through both HR camps for all of you. There's going to be plenty of times for you guys to ask questions. If you want me to clarify anything or dig deep or delve deeper, just let me know, depending on what you need. Please don't be shy. If you feel uncomfortable during the session, but you prefer to connect afterwards, I'm more than available. I could share my email, my work cell, my LinkedIn, whatever you need. We're all here as a resource for you to basically be the best candidate you can be. And with that said, I'm going to load the presentation and go through it. Okay, we want to Can you see the slideshow?
Yes.
Somebody thumbs up? Yes. Okay. Very cool. Here's my contact info. If you need to quickly jot it down before we move over, that's fine. If you want to follow on Instagram, LAUSDHR is me. It's on my cute work phone. So if you ever need anything, you can reach me there, or you can follow our page. But this is also my email address. Another thing to keep note is after every presentation or at the end of the job fair, somebody from the classified team is going to send you guys all links to all of these. So if there's something you want to refresh later, I'm guessing one of my old teammates, Roy, is probably going to send you all a courtesy email with all the links to every webinar. So don't worry if you missed something.
It should be that, yeah. So we have to swap her, and she was so happy.
Of course.
Then I found out that she has like a 3-month-old baby. I'm like, what?
Ma'am, somebody is on mute, needs to mute. So I'm basically, this presentation is going to be set up in 2 steps. The first step is going to be the actual application process.
When I was delivering the check, if your youth has any issues cashing the check, call me.
Let me find out.
I know we have those cards that are about to expire. No sé si las abriste, dicen COVID relief. Yo, qué vergüenza.
I'm going to have to mute everybody. I want you to be able to ask questions, but whoever is talking, can you please be careful to mute yourself? Thank you. The first process is going to be the application process. And again, it might sound dry, but it's not.
Yes. Get more samples. Ask for an additional sample.
1 second, everybody. Ma'am, I'm trying to find who it is so I can mute them. 1 second. But some of you don't have your cameras on. Here we go. Oh. 1 second. Can please mute.
She muted already.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, whoever that was. The first step is that, I mean, it's okay. You guys, I'm like, you'll know by now I'm pretty easygoing, but I'm like, So the first step is the application process. And then the next step is going to be basically actual test taking strategies. Jumping right in. We have 2 HR departments. The first one is classified. That one deals with all of the non-teaching positions. So your attorneys, your finance, your payroll, your accounting, your cafeteria, bus driver, office manager in the school office, special ed assistants, anything that's basically not teaching, the engineers, the custodial, painters, plumbers, carpenters, you guys get the drift, that's classified. On the other side, we have certificated HR, which is all the teachers, counselors, vice principals, assistant principals, principals, executive coordinators, PSA counselors, regular counselors, nurses, anything that has to do on a school site with instruction. So depending on what your background is and what you're interested in, you're going to have 2 shops to apply in. There's a lot of similarities between them, but basically both of those shops deal with applications, the assessment process, your candidate preparation, and then also earning your spot on a hiring list. Later in the presentation, I'm going to delve into that section a little bit more, but candidates often have to realize that you earn your spot on the hiring list, and we need to basically have you be the best candidate you can be. So objectives for today are basically to breeze over the application process and then go through what classified and certificated processes are after you hit the submit button. And then finally, how to best prepare yourself in person and on paper. Two HR departments, as I said, they actually do exactly the same thing. They all recruit for positions. They develop and administer employment assessments. They consult with hiring managers, and they liaison with candidates and for candidates. There's a little bit of difference in the processes, but the overall core skill sets are the same. So both shops, again, you want to take a quick second to breeze over this, go for it. But yeah, they do the exact same things. If you want to see any of our accounts on social media, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. That's probably your best way to get notified about when jobs open, what job fairs we're going to, what new projects we have, and all that good stuff. So it's basically LAUSD Jobs is the same handle on every single platform. I know that for a fact because I'm the one who created them in my old job, so the handle hasn't changed. And then in my new role, it's LAUSD HR, and then also LAUSD_recruitment or recruiter. So it just depending on which shop you want to go into and what you want to apply for, but you might as well follow all of them because there's a lot of overlap between the departments, and oftentimes you'll go to an event for certificated, but you'll have a classified question. You can still ask a recruiter there. This is just a good way to stay connected, just in case you don't have time to check our websites continually for new opportunities. But we post 99% of the jobs on social media. So if you follow us here, you're going to see every opportunity we have for you. It's probably your easiest bet to stay connected and notified. Okay, we're going to delve into the process. So as a candidate, you have 5 functions as a candidate. The first one is you're exploring job opportunities, whether you're looking at lausdjobs.org or teachinla.com. Those are the 2 HR websites. You're basically going to look to see what else we have available, what's upcoming, what's currently available, what interests you. The reason why I said what interests you is a lot of times candidates will see the title, but they actually won't read the job bulletin in detail. Not every job is really for you. We would hate for you to be in a job where you're unhappy, but you just took it. It would be ideal if you're happy in your role. So please try to apply for a job that genuinely interests you, especially because you are working for a school district. Especially if you're dispatched to a school site, you want to make sure you're here for the right reasons, because ultimately the students are what matter to us, and everything you do as a certificated or classified employee directly benefits to student achievement. So we want to make sure you're applying for jobs that you are genuinely interested in. The third step would be participating in an assessment process. It's basically different for every job you apply for. Some jobs, the assessment process will be a quick interview. Other jobs, the assessment process might be like scoring your resume or a technical project or even a hands-on assessment. If you're applying for a bus driver, we actually put you behind the wheel of a bus to see if you can actually drive the bus. So be mindful of the assessment process. And then step 4, we would be interviewing with a hiring department. What's a little bit different on that step, and I'll delve into it in a few minutes, is with hiring department interviews, that's the final interview. You've already been on the list. You can ask them anything they want. During step 3, where it's the actual assessment process, it's a standard interview. You don't really have that much variation in materials with other candidates, and the panel can't really ask you anything they want. But with the hiring manager interviews, you're already on the list. You've earned this right to be hired. So now the hiring manager can delve deep into your background and ask additional questions. And it's not exactly standard. And then the last step would be to receive a job offer and join the LAUSD family. Okay. Moving right along, the application. The application is obviously our first impression of you. We need candidates to do as thorough of a job as they can. Basically, what the HR recruiters are looking for, we're making sure that you actually qualify for the job you're applying for. That's really important for us because let's say a job requires a master's degree and 7 years of experience. If you don't have that, we can't legally let you continue. If we find nobody, it still doesn't mean we can hire you. So that's really important. Those are legally bound entrance qualifications. If you don't have them, you actually can't move forward. So that's why I said earlier, apply for jobs that genuinely interest you and that you genuinely qualify for. Also, we look for any professional certifications you have. If you're going into IT, an A+, a Cisco, things like that are important. If you're going into HR, perhaps you get a PHR or an APHR. Any additional certifications you have, the application would be the best part to put it. Sometimes applications have questionnaires. And when you see a questionnaire, we're basically asking you to give us a little bit more detailed information. On the classified side, sometimes you'll see that the questions have points associated to them. If you see points, that means your questionnaire is getting scored. If you don't see points, that means we're just trying to get additional information. And then, of course, the resume are things we look for. Resumes can be thorough or not thorough, depending on what your candidate profile says. So on both systems, we have candidate profiles or resumes. You can pick and choose if you want to actually give a thorough profile or a thorough resume. But the one thing you don't want to do for questionnaires is to say see resume. That doesn't help us. It actually makes the recruiter triple their time. They have to go back and forth to 2 different screens. And if resumes end up getting scored, the panel will also won't appreciate that they have to go back and forth. So the C resume never really works to your advantage if there is a questionnaire. I threw a lot at you guys so far and I'm kind of moving fast. Does anybody have any questions they want me to answer? Anybody? Okay, got it. No worries, this is fine. Actual test parts. For the assessment process, there are several different types of tests that we usually have candidates take. The first one is a skills test. That one would be more if you applied for a clerical position, we might see your accuracy rate for typing. We might see your attention to detail. If you applied for legal secretary, we'll ask you legal vocabulary, court information, like deadlines, things like that. So the skills tests are basically an online battery. They're pretty quick. They're about 50 minutes each. We sometimes give 3. That's more of a skills and a foundational test. Scored questionnaires are when we need to delve a little bit more information as part of your application. And as I said a few minutes earlier, they'll always have points on the right side of them. That's when you know that the questionnaire is scored. If we don't put like the question and then 5 points, then it's not scored. So if you see it, you'll automatically know. Also, the instructions will say that it's a scored questionnaire. We never surprise the candidates at all. The next one is a training and experience evaluation. That one is usually more for higher level positions where we're trying to really identify the people that most closely depict what the ideal candidate profile is. That one would be something like has a related master's degree, has several coursework, has worked in a public sector K-12 agency. That's things where we're looking for bulleted benchmarks that differentiate you from other candidates. And that's why I said applications and resumes have to be thorough in case there's a TNE. If you just put one sentence, we don't know what you've done, you're not going to earn any points, and you might be a phenomenal candidate, but the panel doesn't know. So I know it stings on your application, but honestly, spend some time on the application because it'll definitely pay off in the long run and it'll make you a better candidate moving forward. Writing projects are 2 points. Usually they're either content, whether we're trying to see if you can just write in general English, or if it's a technical writing project, which is more of a subject area based where you have to prove that you have the background. That also comes into effect when you get to when you get your invite letter, it'll say if it says technical writing project, it's going to be based on content and style in English. If it just says writing project, you're probably just looking at English and grammar and punctuation, all that good stuff. Again, it also depends on what job you're applying for. A lot of the jobs actually have to do with report writing. So if you're in a role where you're doing compliance, memos, reports, you're going to have a writing project for sure. Technical projects are a lot more common for engineering and IT and those kind of jobs where we really have to delve to see if you can do coding, if you can do the framework with the civil engineering, whether you can
Los Angeles.
do the
This free
specs.
website provides information on low-cost internet services and mobile devices.
People, please mute
This
your
service
screen.
can also help Angelinos find access to computers and digital literacy services. Whether you're distance learning, working remotely, searching for a job, planning a telehealth appointment, or just
The
staying
good thing is
connected
they're
with
actually
family
in
and
the session
friends,
somewhere
while
else, so
staying
it's a
safe at
positive.
home, use Get Connected Los Angeles and the connectivity resources. Visit getconnectedlosangeles.lacity.org to check your eligibility or to search for services in your zip code.
Mientras los estudiantes y profesores se preparan para el nuevo año escolar, la ciudad de Los Ángeles está aquí para ayudarlo a encontrar formas asequibles de conectarse a Internet. La ciudad de Los Ángeles se ha asociado con California Emerging Technology Fund y Everyone On
with
para
interviews,
brindarle Obtenga
you really want to make
Connected
sure
Los
that you're
Ángeles.
representing yourself the
El
best you
sitio
can.
web gratuito proporciona información en servicios de Internet de bajo costo y dispositivos móviles.
If you click
Este
your
servicio puede
participants
también ayudar a los
button, it'll
angelinos
list
a encontrar
everyone and
acceso a
those that are
computadoras,
unmuted at the top.
alfabetización
Okay.
digital y servicios,
Got it. Thank you.
ya sea que esté aprendiendo a distancia.
I think we're good. Let me just go through and mute. I don't want to mute you all so you can ask questions, but
You could do like
okay, I got it. I muted you all, but so if you have questions, just put the chat box, okay? Okay, for interviews, that's when panel members are looking for very specific skill sets. Interviews are almost asked for every single job you apply for, whether it's classified or certificated. With interviews, we're actually looking for behavioral examples that can actually demonstrate that you've done the work. It might be questions like, tell me about your background in project management.
Classics on the big screen that you can enjoy from the comfort and safety of your own car. Movies in September start at 8 p.m.
Okay. And you can actually answer the questions as best as you can. The panel members sometimes will ask you follow-up questions. A lot of candidates get triggered by that, or they think they're doing something wrong. You're actually not. If the panel is asking you a follow-up question, it's actually a blessing for you. They're just giving you another chance to submit more information. Again, it's never a negative. Don't take it personal. It's actually more of like a lifeline. They're giving you a final chance to clarify, add more, change your answer. Anything you need to do to convince the panel that you actually can do the job. You have to remember, these people don't know you. They have 30 to 40 minutes to make up their mind about you, whether or not you can actually do the job. The interview is definitely not a place to be humble at all whatsoever. Any type of examples you have, please make sure you give them. One thing to note at this phase during the assessment process is that the interviews are standard. Every candidate gets the same questions no matter what. So you might think somebody took it harder on you, but they actually didn't. The selection analysts write the test materials along with our hiring managers. Materials have been approved by 2 or 3 people, but it is a standard process. So please know that every candidate gets treated the exact same way as best as we can. Sometimes fire alarms go off, things happen, we reconvene, but that's why I said as best as we can, we treat every candidate the same way at this step in the assessment process. Okay. Eligibility lists. Once candidates compete in the assessment process, they actually get placed on an eligibility list. On the classified side, candidates are ranked according to their final scores, and the hiring managers can pick from the top 3 ranks. So you have to be rank 1, rank 2, or rank 3 to get a job offer. For almost every single job we have, some positions have school-based area lists, which are a little different, but that's probably a little too detailed for this presentation. But for the most part, you have to be in the ranks 1, 2, or 3. A lot of the jobs that you might apply for, we actually have dozens of vacancies. So let's say you're rank 12, don't take it personal. That just means in a month or so, once the list starts moving, you'll move up in the ranks. Your main goal is to get onto a list and get onto a list as high as you can. The higher, the better. But sometimes just making it to the list is also good enough. You just have to wait a little bit longer. Some of the positions, like I said, there might be 45 vacancies. So if you're number 25, it's really not that big of a deal. You're probably going to be just fine. Most lists in classified are good for 1 year unless exhausted. Exhausted just means everybody got offers and there are only less than 3 people left on the list. On the certificated side, which is the teaching instructional side, it's a little bit different. Candidates are placed on hiring lists in order of their just first and last name, and if they meet the minimum entrance requirements. In certificated, they also compete in an assessment and they receive a score higher than the pass point, but that it isn't like a competitive, you're against the rubric, top 3 ranks. They have a little bit more wiggle room. In certificated, if you pass the test, you're on the list. On the classified side, you have to pass and be in the top 3. So it's a little bit different, but there's still a lot of similarities between the two shops. One thing to note here with the eligibility list, and I said it earlier, candidates oftentimes walk away saying that the panel gave me a poor score. The panel has preset benchmarks. They're looking for you to earn the best score you can. So the ownership is on you. So that's why I said a few times, don't be humble in any part of this process. The panel doesn't know you at all. So you have to convince them in 25, 30, 40 minutes that you're the best person for the job. So now that we threw a lot of process questions at you, does anybody have any questions about processes, or should we jump right into test taking tips? Anybody in the chat? No? Okay. Questions? Part 2 is tips for candidates on how you can be the best candidate you can be. And again, the recording will be shared with all of you. So if you miss anything, don't even worry about it. If you have a follow-up question and you want to ask me privately, I'm very available. I'm always willing to help. Oh, there's something flashing. Let's see what this is. Chat box. RL test box. It's not so much a blueprint, but some positions only have like an TNE where we score the resumes and then we interview. Some positions only have interviews. Some of them are only technical projects. It just depends on what you're applying for and also how many people applied. Sometimes we need to do a little bit of a crowd measure where if 600 people applied, we need to initiate a first test part to get the pool down to a more manageable number. It's a hard question to ask, but it's a really good question. Chris Bell, I don't think you want it to be anonymous, but it's okay. But yeah, it just depends on what you applied for, but almost every job does have an interview for sure. But other than that, you also have to demonstrate that you can do the job. That's actually Ed Code and merit system. It's law. It's not something we choose to do. We by law have to find the best candidates in a competitive process. Tips for candidates. You're submitting your application. Your resume and your application need to kind of match or be similar. You'd be surprised if you put a really old resume, but a new profile and it doesn't match, it just makes the recruiter question the validity of you as a candidate. You'd never want to be on the radar of the recruiter for a bad reason. You want to be on the radar of the recruiter for a good reason. So the resume should look pretty close to as similar to the candidate profile as possible. Keep in mind also that the application is a test part if we end up scoring it. So don't procrastinate. A lot of times systems go down, glitches happen, things like that. You also don't want to stress out. Some of the questions that we ask might need you to think about it for a couple minutes. Sometimes applications take an hour, hour and a half. So if you leave it for last minute and you're straggling, you're just going to get stressed out. Our jobs are minimum open for 15 days, and that's also California Ed Code. So if you see it and if you follow us on social media, we always post the opportunity on day 1 or 2 at the latest, which would give you an additional 13 or 14 days to apply. So please try not to procrastinate. Also on Instagram, we do a lot of reminders like final 2 days left. So if you do follow us, you are going to get little friendly nudges and reminders to get your applications in. Again, for the application, you want to make sure you convey why you're the best person for the job. That could be in your cover letter, that could be in your duty statements, that could be anywhere you find. Again, I've said this theme a lot. It's no place to be humble whatsoever. The recruiter doesn't know you, the panel doesn't know you. So any part of the candidate process, a lot of people are very sweet and they're a little modest, but again, I keep saying that because they don't know you. Make sure your application is reflective of everything you've done. And also you can compare it to the job description, the post, all that good stuff, which leads me to this slide. When you're applying for a job, the first picture is our job opportunities. They'll always have a salary, an open date, a close date, a little bit of information about the department. If there's like an admin analyst job where 30 departments could use it, we might talk about the current vacancy. There's a high-level job available now, but it's for the COVID response team, but it's also a universal position. So we would say in the first section, current vacancy is for. So if you like it, please make sure to convey why you like it. Also keep in mind that lists can be used pretty much universally. If you don't like the current opportunity, you should still apply and get onto the list because other departments might also need this position. If you look at the second picture, it's the official class description. Our official class descriptions are listed on the LAUSD Personnel Commission's website. Those are usually 3 pages. They're very professional. They're a wide range of what the job would be. They also will have the duty statements, the knowledges and abilities that we need, and the minimum requirements. So when you look at these first 2 things, you want to actually look at what the ideal candidate is as described in the job announcement, and then also look for the knowledge, abilities, and duty statements on the official class description. If you've done any of those things, please make sure your resume includes it. And it's also a good way for you to prepare for your assessment when you're later in the candidacy. So anything in the job announcement is fair game to be asked about in an interview, a writing project, TNE. Another thing with assessments for public sector is we can't really surprise the public. So if it's in the announcement, the duty statements and the ideal statements are usually correlated to the assessment. So anything you see on these 2 documents is pretty much fair game to be included in like a assessment process. So please keep that in mind. If you've done anything, put it on your resume and draw correlations for the recruiter and for the panel. You basically want to make everybody's job easy on why you're the best person. Okay. We've touched upon this a little bit, but research your own abilities, your own education, your experience, and your goals. A lot of times people just want a job, they apply for 47 things, but in reality, you probably are better for 2 or 3 of them. And the reason why I say that is you're welcome to apply for anything you want, but we also want you to manage your expectations because I don't want you to get hurt or lose like momentum or motivation. If you're applying for very technical jobs that you're just probably not the best fit for, it's likely not going to be a favorable outcome, and we don't want you to lose motivation. I know that sounds negative, but I really don't mean it in a negative way. So I hope you guys aren't taking it that way, but please keep in mind that apply for jobs that you genuinely are interested in and your background suits itself for. Include all relevant examples. If you've been in a school setting or a public sector agency, please make sure to draw those conclusions as well. Any career highlights you've done, especially if you're in a school setting or if you've basically implemented a brand new initiative or anything agency-wide versus just your department. Any challenges that you had to overcome. This last 1.5 years was a challenge for 99% of the population. So if you overcame it, it's probably a good place to put it. On your part, you're going to receive invite letters from the selection folks. Please pay attention to the invite letter. The invite letter tells you your time, your date, what documentation we need, whether it's your driver's license, not social security. We check that only if you're coming in for a written test. Whether it's degrees that are needed, certifications. If you're an attorney, we ask for your bar information, your bar card. If you're an IT person and you need a Cisco certification, we ask for proof. If you're at LVN, we ask for your LVN. So pay attention to the invite letter. You won't get turned away if you're missing any of them, but your scores are going to be put on hold. And it goes back to a common thread. Make everybody's life easier. Bring what you need to bring. Clear your calendars and obvious. Arrive early. If you have Zoom, Teams, all that other software, you might want to do a dry run with a friend or a family member first to make sure your mic is recording, make sure all that good stuff. One funny thing this morning is my laptop updated itself this morning and it locked me out for 30 minutes and I had a oh no moment, like please finish. So you might want to check all that ahead of time. Be patient, obviously. And one final thing on your part is cushion time. We normally run about 1 time slot behind, and that's really not a planning issue. When we were in the corporate office, it's downtown traffic. If 2 panel members are stuck in gridlock, 1 panel didn't start on time. On the Zoom side, if somebody has a power outage or somebody has connectivity issues, if 1 panel member is a high-level executive and their work phone rings and it's somebody official, they leave. So you have to assume that there are so many things out of the HR office's control that we're normally 1 time slot behind. And I mean that honestly. So please be patient. You might want to have a snack or 2 and keep that in mind, especially if your assessment is near like lunch break. Please be mindful of that. Okay, on the day of the assessment, please provide job-related examples with concrete responses and relevant details. A lot of times, if we're asking you like a project management type question, you might just say, I worked on this, but that doesn't help the panel. What was the size of the team? What was the budget? Did you have stakeholders? What was the impact? We need comprehensive, complete, robust answers. Even if it's in your resume, the panel may have only had 3 minutes to read your resume. You don't know that. So the verbal portion of the interview is no place, I keep saying this, no place to be humble. Make sure your answers are very, very detailed. If it's a writing project, again, make sure it's detailed. Some tips for writing projects are listen to the proctor's instructions. The proctors will tell you what you need to do. There's usually a scenario A, scenario B, whether or not they want you to write a memo, whether or not they want you to actually present it to the panel verbally. A lot of candidates mess up on this step where they'll forget to put it in a format, or you'll make a silly thing like forget to address it when it says a scenario. You just, again, want to pop out for the right reasons and not the wrong ones. So make sure that you're paying attention to what the assignment actually is. And if you have any questions or any computer glitches, please clarify with the proctors. What the exam proctors do is they take note of any candidate that had an issue. So down the line are, if there's an appeal or anything that needs to be investigated, we'll know candidate Yolanda at 11 a.m. notified the proctor that she had 3 computer glitches. So what we do is we work with you to make sure that you were fairly represented as a candidate, and if anything needs to be identified or addressed, but please don't be shy. The proctor is there to help you.
Okay.
She's there to help you. She doesn't have a dog in the race. She doesn't really have an opinion of who gets the job or not. She's there to basically follow instructions from the test analyst, and basically there to ensure that every candidate has a standard fluid experience. So if you need anything, please check in with your proctor. For interviews, you want to dress the part. You want to definitely relax. If there's a study session where there's 10 minutes to review the questions, use that time very wisely. Get some examples that you can. Sometimes we give study sessions as courtesies when there are several behavioral-based questions that all want you to give examples, like an example of project management, example of community engagement, an example. So we want to make sure you kind of don't use the same example over and over. So we might give you a quick 10-15 minute study session just to read the questions so you organize your thoughts. So that's kind of why I said use it wisely if you're given that courtesy. You may not always have it. Sometimes you do. When we were in the corporate setting, we would have like a read along. There is a chat question. Let's see. What is the dress code? There is no dress code really, but you want to look presentable. Obviously, if you're applying for a bus driver and you're in the field, it's a little different. If you're coming to a corporate office for an interview with corporate panel members, you want to convey that. It's just more of a look as professional as you can or as close to the job that you're applying for as you can. That would be the best way I would say it. Even in a Zoom environment, even though you're home and you're comfortable, you might want to just still dress a little bit nicer for the interview. It's a common theme that I've been saying. You want to make you the best candidate you can be, and the panel members should focus on your responses and not your appearance. So you don't want to give them a reason to notice whether it was good or bad. Basically blend in on that part. Hopefully that answers your question. With responses, we have another question. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, cool. And then obviously give as concrete examples as you can. If you're stuck, there's always the tried and true STAR method. What was the situation? What was your task to overcome it? What did you actually do? And what was the result? One thing to notice on the action part is when you're using a lot of we, they might stop you and say, well, what did you do? A lot of times we're asking for your role in the project or your role on the assignment. Even though if it was a group effort, you can acknowledge it was a group effort, but your specific role was. You don't want the raters to question like that the person, you want them to take your answer, but you also want them to know like, yes, it was a group setting, but Laura was able to answer that she was in charge of planning, coordinating, executing, and then research. So you want to make sure you're taking credit for your specific contributions if it was a team setting. Okay. Okay, we're getting towards the end, so please bear with me. This is an important slide because this is actually where a lot of candidates have questions. For the certificated and classified HR, there's a very big difference between an initial interview that gets you your spot on the list and then a final departmental interview after you're on the list. On the left side, it's always job related. It's a panel member that does not know you, and they're basically trying to identify that you actually can do the job. That place is where it's the standard questions. They ask everybody the same thing. It's behavioral. They're looking for, can this person do the job? You don't have to ask them anything back whatsoever, unless you want them to clarify a question for you. Don't give them your resume. They already have it. You don't have to give them letters of recommendation. They're not really allowed to take it. Sending a follow-up email is not really necessary at all. In fact, they're probably just going to forward it to the selection person to respond to you saying it's not necessary. And then the last question they'll always ask you, is there anything else you want to add regarding your qualifications? Please answer. That's a place for you to contribute to the process as well. Panel members ask you 6 or 7 standard questions. That final closing question is your 2 minutes to address anything you want to share that they didn't specifically ask you, any answers or projects you have that didn't fit into any of the standard questions. It's basically your final elevator pitch to convince the panel that you're the best person for the job and give you the highest score they possibly can, so you get to the top 3 and you get your job. On the right side is your departmental interview. This interview is after you've made it to the list. We send our hiring managers a list of all the candidates. That step is usually a hiring manager. It might be somebody that you might report to, or also people that will report to you if you're in a leadership role. That's when they'll ask you a little bit more of a flexible, any kind of question they want to ask you. Obviously nothing illegal, but they can ask you more free-handed questions about their actual sites themselves. You can ask them follow-ups at this point, because at that point, you're trying to decide whether this actual specific vacancy is right for you. If you had your heart set on like environmental health, you might want to wait for the environmental health department to offer you an admin analyst versus the office of attorneys. So it just depends on the department interview. You actually have control yourself. You can ask them what priorities would be, what the first 30 days would look like, why the team likes working there, how long the people have worked there, anything you want to know about the vacancy that helps you decide whether or not you're going to say yes if you get an offer or not. That would be after you've made it to the list. This interview also is where you want to take any letters of recommendation, any accolades, anything to convince the hiring manager to give you the job over somebody else. Any questions on this slide? Because this is usually where a lot of people actually have the questions. I'll give you guys maybe 15 seconds to type one if you have it, because this is the real difference between, there we go, I knew it. Okay, yes, everything will be available afterwards. We're going to send every person a list of the job fair slides and probably even a link to the recording. I actually was one of the lead organizers of the job fair last year in my old role. So I ended up emailing everybody like 7 links, and we'll probably end up posting this also on our YouTube channel, but definitely you'll have a copy of this presentation and the slides available. So don't worry. Any questions about the other differences between these two? It's really important to remember that.
Thank you for calling Los Angeles Unified. For information regarding coronavirus, please press 1.
Let's see who
For
this
general
is.
Los Angeles Unified information, please press 2.
Very cool. Okay, let me see who this is again. I'm going to mute you all. Okay. The question was, when do you hear back after you've taken an assessment? Usually we end up emailing you within a couple of days now that we're in a remote environment and everything is virtual. If there are no issues with the debrief at the end of the day, we actually email everybody within a week or so at the latest. Let me read all the questions. Can you volunteer at a school if you want to gain experience? Yes, but each school does their own hiring directly. So you have to contact the school that you want to work at and ask the front office if they're looking for student volunteers or adult volunteers. But if you have specific questions or you want to drill that, you're welcome to email me separately and I can talk you through that process. How many days typically department interviews after the initial? Usually we send the departments the list if they're urgently trying to fill, they might jump on it the same day. When I was a hiring manager, I, within 30 seconds or after receiving the email, had my interviews already scheduled. It just depends how long the position's been vacant and how anxious the department is to fill it. Sometimes schools take a little bit longer only because the SAA is trying to get a community of stakeholders together on a specific day to interview everybody. But I would say a week or so is more than enough. If it's been 2 weeks and you haven't heard anything, you might want to check in with the school directly, or maybe even the actual hiring manager, or even the HR person. Yes, I agree. It definitely depends on urgency. Some projects are very urgent and some of them are more just filling for the next school year. And also you have to remember at this time of the year, the schools are already closed. So a lot of the schools are going to open back the second week of August, which means that these are all good questions. I'm reading them, which means that July is actually a pretty busy time of year for school-based vacancies. If you have any questions about a specific school with a vacancy, you can either contact somebody in our assignments branch, or you can actually call the school directly themselves. It also depends what job you want to apply for. If it's more of like a food services job, or if it's more of like an admin job, the HR person might be able to see a vacant position control number. Coordinator positions urgent. Coordinator positions, that's a hard question to answer because each school, it depends how long it's been vacant. I know that the board approved some positions at the last board, so we are actually recruiting currently for coordinators. I would probably say to call the SAA if there's a specific school you want to work at and ask if they have an immediate vacancy. If that doesn't work, email me separately and then I can put you in touch with the talent specialist over at Teach in LA so that we can get you the exact school. So it's hard to answer globally. It just, again, depends school by school. Interviews today today, they are not doing interviews. Today, they are collecting resumes, but interviews are pretty soon. The goal of today's event, everybody, is to basically find enough talent to staff the schools before they reopen. So everybody that's at today's event will very likely get expedited treatment. And that's also what happened last year. CTE coordinator is actually open now, but it's on the classified side. It's the career pathways coordinator. That's actually a really cool job. I've ran that recruitment and assessment before. You can end up being placed in fashion, in admin, in horticulture. It just depends on what actual industry you end up being placed in. You can submit resumes at www.lausdjobs.org for the career pathways coordinator. And then for other coordinator jobs that are school-based, you're looking at teachinla.com. Okay, people, hold on. I'm scrolling through all the questions. These are awesome. The panels are usually 2 people if you're testing to actually get onto the list. Sometimes there might be 1 if it's very, very structured, but 95% of the time it's 2 people. Sometimes there might be 3. The attorneys notoriously like to have 3 people. I think it's because they want to split the difference if there's like a conflict. So it's almost always 2 people. Do the schools do their own hiring for BNG? BNG can be hired from a school directly, or you can be from MNO directly for the rapid response program, or it could be from a central list. So BNG, again, depends on the school you want to work at. But if you want to reach out to me separately, I'm happy to dig into the areas you want to work in and connect you with the right people. When should we expect to start if we are hired? Schools start back August, I think it's 12th, somebody correct me. It's that second Tuesday in August. So usually, and the SAAs go back the 3rd week of July. So anytime around late July to early August would probably be your school-based start date. If you're in a central position, you can get hired earlier than that. Just interviewed for Family Navigator. Oh, very cool. Congratulations. Do you get trained for career pathways position? That one actually needs 2 or 3 years of career-based position experience, but it's pretty general. If you're not sure, you can reach out to me separately, or you can even apply for the job and make sure you work with the selection analyst to demonstrate why. But if I remember correctly, that one was 2 years of job-related experience, but it's pretty broad. For the Family Resource Navigator, I'm not sure if you had a final interview or if you're talking about the initial interview to get placed on a list. Speech language pathology assistants. Yes, those are classified. So you'd want to apply at lausdjobs.org. If it was the speech language pathologist, that would be the certificated side. So the assistant is classified, the actual pathologist is certificated. Oh, we have 7 more questions. I love it. Oh yeah, definitely. You want the websites through the chat. It's LAUSD, but I don't know if this is going to go to everybody. Yep. Okay, and then it's teach in. Okay, I think they came through, but let me know if they didn't. Okay. If I don't have architecture, can I still? If you don't have the architectural related, you're probably going to get disqualified, which is why I said earlier, you want to manage your expectations as a candidate. If it's a very technical role that you know you don't have the experience in, it's probably not going to be a favorable result. So please reflect before you do.
Make sure your chat is responding to everyone. I do not see your replies.
I'm sorry. Everyone. There we go. Good call. Okay, let me scroll back up. For the school advocate position, that's more of a safety type position, and it's more of a liaison position. You're going to be involved very closely with the community. You have to have a pulse on the community. If there are any community issues that arise that you want the school or the district to change, advocate for, that's a new position that was created recently, and it's basically to foster a safe and healthy learning environment for everybody and to actually be a lot more involved in the school community. We need a lot of those. So if you're interested in that, please apply as soon as you can, because they are moving pretty quickly on that one. Do you have an email? Yes, I definitely have an email, and I'll go back to the first slide at the end so that you guys can get all my contact info, and I'm happy to connect with anybody who wants. It was the first interview, but you ranked 5th. If you ranked 5, that's actually pretty good, because the resource navigator, there's more than one vacancy. Like I said earlier, anytime you get onto some of these lists, your rank oftentimes doesn't matter, especially when there's a lot of vacancies. Now, if you're applying for environmental health and safety specialist, and we know that there's 1 vacancy, then you need to be top 3. But a lot of the admin analyst, school-based, food services, bus driver, what else? Speech language pathology assistant, LVN, if you want to be an LVN, a lot of those jobs, honestly, if you get to the list, you're probably going to be fine. Especially, you have to keep in mind, we have 1,250 schools. It's right around there. It's around the 1,200 mark. So if you make it to a list, you're probably going to be fine. So don't worry about that if it's a school-based position. If it's a corporate-based position where we know that it's only 1 vacancy, then you want to definitely do the best you can. But the next step would be you have to wait till you're in the top 3. Anybody in the ranks 1, 2, or 3 can get a final interview with a hiring manager. Cover letters are not required, but you actually may want to put them. That's your best place to identify why you're applying for a job. If you had a gap in your employment, if you switched career fields completely, because as a recruiter and as a panel member, when we read resumes, we look for a logical progression of a career. But if, let's say, you took 3 years off because you wanted to switch from finance into psychology, that might be a great place to put it. Especially in light of COVID, I don't think anybody's really asking about career gaps. We all know a lot of people got laid off. We all know. So if it's a career gap, I wouldn't really worry about addressing it there. A cover letter is more of a narrative for you. Also, it can show what kind of writer you are. If you're a really good writer, it's a great place to actually convey that. Do schools have accounting positions or only office? Yes, schools have accounting type positions, but they're financial related. The question was, do schools have accounting positions? Schools have financial managers and senior financial managers. Those are basically the student books. They might handle the cash from fundraisers, the student store sales, and they may help the principal with his or her budgeting. It just depends on how much involvement the principal bestows to the financial person. But yes, there are school-based finance positions. They're financial manager, intermediate financial manager, and senior financial manager. Those are open 3 or 4 times a year. So if you've missed it this round, you can always sign up for a job alert. And that's also something I probably should have said earlier, but we have job alerts available for any and every job. You're always welcome to sign up for an alert. The way the alerts work is on opening day at 10 a.m., you get notified from the system automatically. Once a year, you just have to go in and reapply for the job alerts. They're good for 1 year. Yes, there you can direct message me individually. Just next to your name, scroll down and only highlight me instead of everybody. Okay, you guys have good questions. I love it. How will they be handling interviews? It depends on what type of interviews you're referring to. If it's a job related interview where you're trying to show the panel that you're ready to be a candidate to make it to the list, those are always on Zoom for now. Obviously, down the line, as things reopen, we're going to be hopefully going back to the office soon, but I don't know what that means for the public yet. But yeah, interviews are currently on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or projects, and the selection analyst will let you know. We also have another one called Rivs. Rivs is a computer system that lets you record your answers and submit them, and the panel won't be there that day. They can record them whenever they want. All of this will be in your invitation letter. The selection analyst will definitely give you detailed information on what to expect. Okay, I'm just going. Do you have info on the IT division jobs? Yes, we are always recruiting for IT jobs. We are currently recruiting for IT techs, .NET developers. Our ITD is about 650 employees. Funny you ask, for about 10 years, I actually wrote all the IT exams and did all the IT recruitments from 2007 to 2016. So you're asking the right person. You're welcome to connect with me afterwards on LinkedIn or in my email. I can put you in touch with Katie. Katie is the team lead over all of the IT exams right now. So we only have 3 or 4 people that work on that. They can definitely give you a lot more information. And then we'd want to drill down on your resume to see what your background is and what kind of jobs we have for you. But we have over 2,000 servers. We have about 650 IT employees. We have every job you can think of on the IT side. If you're on the IT security side, even better. When do speech language pathology assistants become available? I don't think those ever close. So you might want to check lausdjobs.org right now or after the event, obviously. But that, I believe, is a hard to recruit for a continuous position that never closes. And if you don't see it, Crispel, I'll connect you with Letjan, Letjan. I don't know if you know her, but she's the one that works on those. So I can put you in touch with her directly. Are school-based jobs flexible with college students? Some of the jobs are part-time. For the question is, are school-based jobs flexible with college students? The TA job is only about 15 hours a week. I actually used to be a TA when I was in college. I used to be a student from 8 to 11, and then 11 to 30 to 3, I was a TA. So it just depends on what job you're applying for. The cafeteria jobs are flexible. The bus driver jobs are flexible. If it's the front office, that's a little bit more. They need you the whole day. But if it's more of a support job, flexibility with part-time is available. The job alerts are on lausdjobs.org. There's a section actually that's called Job Alert. It's pretty self-explanatory once you get there. When you look at upcoming job opportunities, you'll see it under upcoming. I'm going to scroll through this. I love these questions. There are 19 more questions. Will they be interviewing office technicians during summer vacation? The schools are gearing up in the next 2 weeks to basically make final decisions for their August 12th school year. The schools should be done with their hiring a little bit after 4th of July. So please be patient if you're trying to get into a school. My email, I'll give you all. It's a common question. I'm going to go back to slide 1 where I give you all my contact info, please. Architectural job. Yes, the question is if she has or he or she has an architectural related job. With the architectural jobs, it's very specific. It's looking for 3-4 years of architectural experience. The engineering, facilities, maintenance jobs, they're pretty strict on requirements. So please make sure that you actually have that background, or else it's just going to be a negative end result where you get a disqualification letter. And I always like to manage expectations as much as I can up front, because I don't want the candidates or you guys to be like unmotivated to apply. How many office or IT support techs? That's actually a hard question to answer because each school can hire 1 or 2, or they could be centrally housed. But the last few times we ran that, it was in the 20s for the number of vacancies. Hope that answers your question. Is getting hired. Okay, will getting a higher CompTIA certification help if you don't have the required experience? The certification almost never waives the experience, but sometimes the certification is the only requirement. So as many certifications as you have, the better. Do you reapply to be on the teacher list after a year? For the teacher list, let me find the answer for you and get back to you on that, because the teaching, it shuffles around. If the framework hasn't changed, you should be okay. But if the framework changed, because every year they like to modify the process a little, I need to get back to you on that answer. Is there flexibility in full-time jobs? That's a hard one to answer. If your classes are in the evenings, I've had my staff members where they've had like 4 to 7 classes, and I've worked out a schedule where the one night a week where they have classes, they can leave at 3:30. So there are all alternative shifts if it's 1 or 2 days a week. It also depends on how technical the job is and how badly they need to fill it. A lot of these questions are great, but they're really hard to give a global answer to. But we definitely try to work with you, especially if you are the best person for the job. And I'm personally, myself, I'm okay with it. I applied for a college advocate, waiting for high school diploma. Okay. Very cool. Yes, the slideshow will be shared. Does my application get removed if those 2 have not been sent? I don't see what your original question. No, your application never gets removed. What happens is your score gets withheld and you can't get placed onto a list until you submit all the proof of the minimum requirements. So yeah, nobody will ever delete your application. You just won't get placed on a list until you provide the degree, the photo ID, the proof of whatever you need. Okay. Some office techs are part-time, but for the most part, they are full-time. Some schools only budget for 3 hours a day, but majority of those are actually full-time. Are credentials prior to working? Are credentials required prior to hiring, or can we apply while working? We do have emergency permits available, especially if you're looking for special ed or an area of hard to recruit for teaching. We do have a district intern program actually where we pay for your credential. So if you haven't started a credential program yet, you might want to connect with one of the talent specialists. So please message me if you haven't already started. We have so many partnerships with colleges where we actually take their graduates, no questions asked. And we also have a district intern program for several of our specialty areas where we pay for your credential. We even have a LAPOSC program, which is basically a administrative services credential. Down the line, if you are with us and you want to be an administrator, we can pay for your credential for that too. Oh, we're getting towards the end. Okay, very cool. How long can I be on the list? Lists are good for a minimum of 1 year unless it is less than 3 people. If lists are less than 3 people, then we actually can go back out and re-recruit. But minimum, they're usually good for 1 year. Oh, very cool. She wants to get her special ed credential with mild to moderate. Please connect with me afterwards. We, I believe, still have the district intern program where we may be able to pay for your entire credential program. And it's with Cal State Northridge and Cal State LA. So if you want more information, connect with me afterwards. I'll put you in touch with the Teach in LA talent specialist. And depending on what area you live in and what area you want to work in, for the district's territory, I can put you in touch with a specific person. That's also another thing. On the certificated side, we have about 20 talent specialists that each recruit for specific regions. Like the Valley is local district 1 and 2. The Central is near downtown. We go all the way from Porter Ranch all the way down to San Pedro. It's 718 square miles. Another thing to note is on the classified side, when you're applying for, let's say, a cafeteria position or an office position, it'll ask you what regions you're willing to work in. If you want to work in Central, which is region 3, you might also want to, as region 4, you might also want to pick region 3, which is right next to it, because sometimes like one city block is literally the difference whether you're getting a job call or not. Because our assignments branch will pull local district 3, whoever said they're willing to take an offer in 3. And that's who they'll send over to be interviewed. You might want to pick as many areas as you can, keeping in mind that, let's say in the Valley, there's literally a 2 light difference between like Panorama Pacoima and Granada Hills and Mission Hills, but technically they're two separate regions. So that's why I say pick as many areas as you're willing to take a job in. And then down the line, you can say no, I believe 3 times before they pause you. So if there's, and then another thing on that, if you're on a school-based list and you really, really, really want to work only at a specific school, you really should tell your assignment technician, please call me only for Nobel Middle School. So that way you don't get dinged and you don't get counted as your 3 strikes. Because after 3 or 4 no's or 3 or 4, I'm not interested in that school, they'll put a pause on your file. IT divisions with internships. Yes, ITD does have for internships. It's either going to be in infrastructure, security, web, enterprise applications, and then there's 3 other departments. So connect with me afterwards. Maybe share your resume with me. I'll forward it along so that we can see what you want. But we have network ops, security, operations, infrastructure, and customer support. There are 5. So we have 5.
Can you work at more than one school if they have a minimum of 3 hours per day?
Yes, definitely. And if that's really what you want, you should probably call the 2 schools. Like if there's 2 schools, when you really, if you want to work in 2 schools, you might have to be a more aggressive candidate just to call the 2 schools, or maybe let your assignment technician know that I really want to work at these 2 schools. Can these 2 schools share me? I've seen it. I just haven't seen it that often. So you might have to be a little bit more proactive on your side. The pause on file, it's hard to say. It just depends on how quickly they're trying to fill and how many they're trying to fill. So that's why I said, like, if you're really adamant about 2 or 3 schools, you should tell them, call me only for these 2 or 3 schools. If you're a little bit more open, another thing is you can always transfer. That's once you're into the system, you've passed the probation, you're a current employee, you can always put in a transfer and the other school can take you. And transfers are actually pretty simple. It's usually a 1-page form. They sign off and they actually can't withhold your transfer. They only have 2 choices. The 2 choices are approve now or deferred approval. So they can either let you go now, or if they don't, if your administrator doesn't sign it, we self-impose a date. In 12 weeks, you're available to be transferred. And that's with most of the unions. It's in the collective bargaining contracts for CSEA. If you're a CSEA member, it's either the administrator has only 2 options, approve the transfer now, or if they don't approve it, we pre-fill the date and we approve it on behalf of them 12 weeks out. So if you really, really want to make sure, if you're pretty open, just take any job you can and then transfer. Another good thing about transfers, everybody, is once you're an employee, you're fingerprinted, you have an employee number, your TB test is done, you can switch between schools without having too much of a problem. But it's, if you're an outsider and a school wants to hire you, you have to schedule a TB test, come down for processing, all that good stuff. I'm going to put my email in the chat box because a few people have asked for it. And then I will give you guys my district cell phone number because I did that not to everybody. I'm so sorry. Direct message. Copy. Let's paste this here. You gotta love technology, everyone. Okay, this time we're gonna do everybody because you all need it.
Will the vaccination be a mandate for hiring?
Honestly, not much has been said about that yet. We're not even really open. The schools are open and nobody's being denied for not getting one, but our general counsel is still working on parameters. It just all comes down to, it's the health and safety of everybody involved. There are exemptions, obviously, but I would probably have to check very specifically. It depends on the job you want to apply for, the school you're going to. But we're not forcing everybody to take it and we're not making anybody take it, but it is available to everybody and we're highly encouraging them to. For now, down the line, if that changes, it's again a hard question for me to give you a specific answer. So I hope you're okay with the one I had. Do we have troops to teachers? Oh yeah, we have so many veterans programs. We actually have 5 dedicated staff members in classified and certificated that 100% do veterans outreach. We just had a presentation with VetTech 2 weeks ago. We are committed to And we're actually part of a coalition with several other school districts to remove barriers for troops and their spouses and significant others. So if you have a military type person, but definitely we'll work with you. We've hired IT people, we've hired admins, we've hired teachers, whether you're coming from Vet Tech or Veterans Outreach or directly through us. We even have veterans extra points on some of the assessments. If it's an entry-level position and it's the first test part, you might even be able to get some bonus points on your score if you were in active military or prove that you had military service. Transfer after probation depends on the job, but usually yes, you have to. Sometimes if a principal really wants you or a department really wants you, I've seen things happen, but for the most part, yes, you have to pass probation first. Is the I would like context question for the veterans people? Or was it more of a global? I don't want to single you out, but it's only one person who asked. The last person who asked the question, they asked for their contact, please. I'm guessing you're talking about the veterans folks. Okay, awesome. I'm going to put her email address in the chat box for you all. Shanna is actually the classified recruiter, Shanna Frappier. She does all of the veterans outreach for classified. And if you want to go into certificated teaching, Shanna will put you in touch with the 3 or 4 people because I don't have their email addresses handy. I know who they are, but their email addresses are like their initials and the last 4 of their employee number. Certificated emails look a little different. Classified emails are usually name.last name. For the question that she doesn't see any opportunities that currently meet her qualifications, yes, you can definitely wait for upcoming opportunities, or you can work with one of the recruiters. Another thing I didn't mention earlier is the LinkedIn job group, LAUSD Jobs, has 5 admins on that group. And I can probably, when I stop sharing this screen, I'll show you guys who they are, just so that you guys can connect with them. The recruitment team on the classified side is only 4 people. So if you connect with any one of those 4 people, they can answer any question you have. And then they can actually work with you to identify future jobs that you could qualify for. We're always willing to work with everybody. For us, another thing to note is we're not on commission, we're employees. So we don't get bonuses. We're always here to help. I love placing people in jobs. When we even go to job fairs, like there was a job fair I went to right before COVID, somebody wanted to be in public relations. I didn't have that, but a sister agency 5 booths over did. I actually walked them over. People that have met me throughout the years will tell you, I love getting people jobs. I hope it's with LA Unified and I want it to be with LA Unified, but I still want you to get off of not having a job. So we work with you, definitely. My personal thing is the most satisfaction I get as a recruiter is when I see you in the elevators after you've gotten the job, like a month in, and we're now coworkers and you're no longer an applicant. That's when I light up. That's when I get my reward, when I randomly run into you at the cafe or in the elevator. That's when everything clicks for me personally. If I don't see any openings, other counties, yep. I think we're getting through the questions. We are over time, so I can keep going or... Good. Okay, so I'm going to keep going for a few more minutes because I want you guys to get to all the booths. Make sure you visit all the other agencies at the event today. This event is every year. A lot goes into it, so we want to make sure you connect with as many people as you can. And keep in mind that you have 2 or 3 minutes probably with the recruiters. If you don't get a hold of somebody, their websites, we share everything with you afterwards. So please don't get discouraged if they have a queue. Some of the booths only have 1 recruiter there, and I know that for a fact because I'm on the back end of it. So try to be patient. Help me connect with one of. Okay, so let me quickly show you guys. I'm going to stop this screen share, and I'm going to show you. Oh, one more question. Okay, let's see. Okay, good. Okay, we're going to stop the screen share for this, and then well, you actually all wanted to see my info, so let me show you that too. This is our best way to get a hold of us. These are the social media platforms. If you wanted to follow any of them, For the LinkedIn groups, I actually will let you in from my phone. It's a closed off group, and it's closed off because people solicit, and it's a closed group for that reason. We're not here to have people sell you a home loan. We're not here to have vendors sell you a cell phone bill or a new plan. So I actually blocked that group off from public posts. So all you'll see there is job related content. Let me quickly show you guys the other screen. There's more questions coming in. Yay. Okay, I know, right? You'd be surprised the stuff people try to put on that group. I'm like, the reason why I blocked it is because I had to. I didn't want to. For the LinkedIn, I'm going to show you guys all real quickly the actual admins for the LinkedIn group so that you want to connect with these people. Okay, LAUSD jobs. Okay, I'm going to show you guys the admins. Okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to screen share, okay? Do you guys see the recruiters here? These are the 4 and 5 people. I obviously myself, I'm the last one. These 4 people are the people that can answer any recruitment question you have for any classified job. Brittany is on day 4, so please bear with her. She just started on Monday. We're super happy to have her. But Shanna is the person that does a lot of the veterans outreach and a lot of the financial jobs and a lot of the nursing type jobs. Victoria does a lot of the school-based, clerical, bus driver, cafeteria, anything that you're in an office or a school setting is probably Victoria. Roy does a lot of the engineering, IT. For the IT guy who had IT questions, please connect with Roy. Super cool, super relatable, very helpful. Roy is the person that does all the engineering, ITs, and facilities, the more corporate. So if I were to, and then Brittany obviously down the line is going to be a little bit of everything. But yeah, so that's what their specialty areas are. And I also can help with anything you need. So if you want to connect with any of these people, please feel free. Okay, I threw a lot at you guys. I'm super happy you guys actually attended. Hopefully you learned a lot and you're ready to be the best candidate you can be. My only final words to you will be, please don't be humble. The panel does not know you. Convey everything you need to convey. And finally, if they're asking you follow-ups, don't freak out. That just means you have 20 more seconds to add more info, and it's nothing but positive. They're looking for benchmarks and answers, and that just means that your answer was probably a little bit incomplete, or you didn't accept or interpret the question the way it was intended. So follow-ups are not bad. Follow-ups are just second chances to give more info. Again, good luck today. Meet as many people as you can. I want to see all of you next school year in a position or in Beaudry, and we're going to high five and have a coffee. Okay. Good luck, everybody. Go back to the group booths and visit as many people as you can. A lot of them are my former colleagues, so I can vouch for them. They're pretty cool. Bye, everybody. Good luck. Stop the recording.